Namaste. Happy Sag season, everybody. Welcome. Sorry, I wasn't on in the last hour. I decided not, I do have a new deck to review today, but I wasn't prepared enough to do it. So I decided to bump this session 1 hour ahead as well. This is public today, so I want to honor this deck that we have been working with for 19 weeks. Holy cow, right? Who would have thought that anyone could make 19 videos about the Cheimonette Tarot? Well, this process is one that it takes time. You know, it really is a labor of love to create a series about a deck that very little is written about, nobody talks about. Oops, sending cards flying. And it really, it just takes a lot of patience. And this has been a very quiet journey. Very few members have hopped on this one. And I want to thank Tammy Ann for being here pretty much every week. I really appreciate that. If you do come back and go through this deck and go through this series, I believe the deck is still available. It really is a dark and wandery sort of deck, and I would encourage you, if you're just one of those people that love to nerd out on the tarot, it's definitely a deck worth investigating. Yeah. So today we're going to finish off the major arcana and then do a reading. So let's go to the cards. And if you haven't seen the deck before, you can go to the playlist that is below. And there was a public video at the start of the playlist. I believe it was called, and then you can just sort of have a look at the whole deck. It was called One Deck Gone Wild. And that video is at the top of the description below. So if you haven't seen the full deck here. Okay, so the majors in my hand are not entirely organized, so I'm sorry, my washing machine, it will go off in a second if you can hear it. Okay. I should have shut the laundry room door. Such is life, right? Okay. And I may brighten up the light in the room for you. We do need to have the magician close at hand today. This deck has 3 world cards. If you're new to this deck. Okay, that may be, no, Hanged Man, Priestess, we need the Sun, Wheel. Okay. I think that is all we need. Sorry, I was nursing my daughter and I wasn't entirely ready to go live. Welcome, Clevis. Hello. Okay. There are, let me get my notes. Hopefully I made notes today. So this is the angel card here. This is the temperance card, and sorry, not the temperance card, the judgment card. And I think I'm going to start with this card today. I know I haven't really addressed the moon or the sun, but I will come back to that. And I think I want to say a little bit more about the star today as well too. And then we did a whole episode, I believe, where we talked about all 3 world cards, but I will address that again. Okay. There is the use of angels appears in several cards in this deck. And what we are looking at in the judgment card, according to the creator of the deck, is a full realization of the Fool. Do we have the Fool card on the table? No. So in this deck, the Fool card is black and white. There is no color in this card. The Fool is without sex. The Fool is without flavor, shall we say. I think that's a good word, without flavor. And not necessarily, I wouldn't use the word innocent. I feel, just let me find the Fool. Sorry. There's the Fool. Like a blank slate. And in the Judgment card, I keep wanting to say Temperance. It looks a lot like a Temperance card. The Fool is fully realized. So the Fool has both sexes. The Fool has a full range of color and character and personality. Now, the angel that we see in this card is the same angel, she says, she is Eden Gallanter, the creator of the deck, as in the Lover's card and the Wheel. You can see the angels in the center of the Wheel card here, and in the Devil, which we've talked about in 2 episodes. I swear there's no rocket in my house. And if you can't hear it, it's my washing machine that's doing its final spin cycle. The problem I have with this number of the angels in these cards, and I know that in the Rider-Waite-Smith we have an angel in Temperance, and we have an angel in the Lover's card as well as the Judgment card, but these angels aren't the figures of the humans. These angelic qualities are taken on by the main character that is in the card. And so it makes them somewhat intangible, if you get my drift. Like let's look at the Lover's card. There's the Love card there. And I asked last week, and I don't know if any of you thought about this, in the Hanged Man card, because in the Hanged Man card as well, and she doesn't mention this, the Hanged Man is sprouting wings. So this is an important symbol in this deck that is worthy of contemplation. What does it mean that you, as a soul having a human experience, wear wings, whether your wings are fully developed or not? These wings we see throughout the story of the major arcana. So is this speaking to your divinity? Is it speaking to the potential for your divinity? Is it simply elevating the frequency of the card? Is it, I don't have the answer to this question. So just take a moment to reflect upon this, because it gives so I'm feeling this. I'm feeling my frustration in my heart and in my throat. Yeah, it just makes it somewhat intangible. The Fool is transformed. The Fool is full. The Fool is rich. The Fool is full of meaning and character. No longer empty like the Fool was in the Fool card, and now is able to transcend and move to a whole new part of their journey, a whole new path. Yes, angel as archetype, but and I'm thinking of Enoch, right? So Enoch was I believe the only one who didn't have to, the Bible, right? Enoch was the only one who didn't have to die to become an angel and then became Archangel Metatron. Usually we have to die to become an angel. And so I'm just, the mythology, the way that this is approached, I'm just questioning it, opening it up for conversation. And those of you that come back in and view this later on, if you have some ideas here, I would love to hear what you have to say about this. Okay. Temperance. Oh my God. Sorry. I mean the Judgment card. As a card of transition. Often when I look at that card and it appears in a reading, I wonder if the querent is ready for this. I think we always have a choice as to how we're going to process this card showing up in a reading. Can the Judgment card have a mundane quality to it? For me, it's one of those cards. Yes, Enoch had a human existence for sure. It's one of those cards where it just feels bigger. And so one of my pieces of advice when this card shows up, not necessarily this deck, but another deck, is that this dream, this next step, this what it is that you are unfolding is much bigger than you realize it is. What appears to you on the surface, is just the surface, and know that this runs much deeper. And you are definitely on path. This feels like it is in alignment with your soul purpose. And make it big. And make it big. It's a card of portals and greatness and awakening. Okay, so let's go to this comment here. I wonder how it might translate an exploration of our relationship to our higher self, the divine aspect of us. Okay, well, let's look at the cards as they appear, or just the ones that she listed. So she starts with love and says it's the same angel as in love. In love, the two angels are connected. They are aware of each other. We also have in this card, we do not have a tree of life and a tree of knowledge. This is another symbol that is really important to have a close look at in this card. That's why I want to go back to the star again. Also appears in the world card. They appear in the world card. But in the lover's card, the tree of knowledge and the tree of life are united. So there's no separation, which is really interesting. And I know there's a lot of lovers love cards where we see the divine masculine feminine energy, the male female energy intertwined, and it looks like you cannot separate one from the other. This has that same sort of meaning, but also this is very much a card of love. It takes on a different energy than where I would go with a Waite-Smith or a Crowley lovers card. This is one about truly embracing the completeness and the soul that you are, taking love to a very high frequency. It feels like she brings in qualities of the Lover's card in other major arcana, and this one it's very touching. It's not about separation. And so here, these wings, I suppose yes. I wrote a blog. I've been writing so much these days. I have many decks mixed up in my head. But what I was thinking about, and this has to do with Tree of Life correspondences, and this is where Sun and Moon exist on the Tree of Life. The sephira of the moon, the sephira of the sun sit on the central pillar, one on top of the other, very close to each other. So Tiferet is the heart. Yesod is the moon, which would be the sacral chakra. And geographically, they're very close to each other. The sun and moon conversation. The moon looks up towards the sun. The sun shines down upon the moon. And they are connected through the main channel. So that's one piece of this. Another piece is that in Swadhisthana chakra, in the sacral chakra, where we have separation of ovaries and testes, right? Two, a pair of each in the male and female body. This is the place where we explore emotion, where we learn to balance the duality. In Yesod, in the moon cards, because the moon is about cycles, we do our best to not rapidly shift from one extreme to the other. We try to absorb the best qualities of the seventh and the eighth sephira, so they become this place of a foundation, which then goes up the tree of life towards the sun. And so I was reflecting on the sexual, the emotional qualities of the sacral chakra, and the heart space being so close to each other. Love exists in the heart chakra. Love in its higher frequencies is definitely a heart chakra energy that has the ability to heal, to create peace. And what I'm sensing in Eden's card is this very, very high frequency. And then she transitions to the wheel, mentions that these angels live in the card of the wheel. They would therefore then be a part of change. Our divinity is that which moves the wheel at a pace in accordance that we can manage. Now, you know that expression? I don't know if there's a very specific quote, but God never gives us more than we can handle. If you have a more eloquent quote, please put that into the chat or the down below later. If that is true, and the angels represent the God, the goddess within, the higher self within, then that is what is turning the wheel. The angel, if you will, takes a bit of a time out in the Hanged Man card, chooses a place of isolation to explore the waters of life, to explore all that they are moving through. And then, I don't really want to rehash this whole thing again, but in the Devil card, we see the wings on the legs, right? So the wings are on the legs. These legs, I mean, there's different ways you might see this. Do you see these legs as powering the bodiless horse? For those of you that aren't up to speed with this deck, the Devil and the Strength card. So in the Strength card, we have the body, the headless body, and there is a rider that is on the Strength card, almost elevating, carrying the headless body away, wanting to separate from that. We have the head of the horse that's in the Lust card, in the Devil card. indicating that the issue is in the head. It's in the judgment. And yet, the human legs have the potential, this angelic potential, being winged in this card as well, too. So we have a lot of paradoxes, dichotomies in these cards. And I wonder if they are all a matter of choice. And focus is a theme that I don't think we can ignore. You know, it's where we want to, where do you want to direct your attention in these cards? And I was asking about if there is a mundane quality to the Judgment card. And what I'm sensing here is that your divine self will reveal itself in the perfect amount that you are ready to face. Oh, I like that, Tamian. I saw that card as our head. Our animal head is driving us, being our, we're being driven by our animal self instead of our human self. Our human legs have the ability to leave. It's a really interesting card. So what I just said was a new thought, and that is, in mythology, God, yes, exactly, Clevis. In mythology, God reveals himself, herself, reluctantly, because most humans are not ready to see God. It's too overwhelming. It's too overwhelming. And so I'm just thinking about situations. So, because I asked this question and I'm trying to explore and answer my own question, and that is, we may see, and I think this is answered in the World card. It is actually. Let me read to you, because Eden writes about this beautifully. We may see God in the wind, the way that a beautiful leaf flutters down from a tree. We may see sparkly red lights around, like the aura of a tree. We may see God in the face of a newborn child. We may see humanness in our loyal pet. And so there is this this dance between our human and our divine experience. And the World card brings all of this together. And in this version of the World card, we see the human, we see the world tree, not the world tree, we see the tree of knowledge, the tree of life, and all of the symbols that we have met in this tarot deck come together in sort of a dance of beauty. And part of the project of this deck is to choose the World card that resonates the most with you. Because there are different stages and evolutions in the 3 World cards. Okay, so I'm just going to read because this is really beautiful. These are the 3 World cards. Okay. The first version of the world shows a young girl in motion between 2 trees, our old friends, the trees of knowledge and life. Around them orbits a belt of planets and stars, and on her left hand is etched the numeral 1. Out of her open mouth is an explanation of sorts. 0, the belt of celestial bodies. 1, the human girl, and infinity, the trees, are equivalent and interchangeable. The trees and the human and the orbit of the celestial bodies are interchangeable. Spirit is within and among all of them. Eden goes on to say, find God in the trees, find yourself in the space in between, and find yourself in the trees, and find space in the God in between, and find space in the trees, and find God in the self and in between, and so on. The view of the universe is one in which there is a place for us. So we come to this place of awe and reverence for how very close we are to Spirit. And any of you who are watching this have had glimpses of this through your life where you are so close to Spirit, you're just not. It's utterly amazing. It's utterly amazing, and you're not even sure what it is that you just experienced. You know that you touched something divine. The second version of the world has the trees growing out of one another, and the world serpent, either a black snake or a hole in the universe in the shape of a snake, with an intelligent eye looking out of the hole, and in between with the everlasting belt of zeros circling the hole. And then in the third version, it becomes more obscure, more expansive, more like a cosmos card rather than a world card. The third version of the world has the serpents in place of the trees, so the serpents become the trees. And I think this is the lesson of this card. Let yourself. We can go back to the Lover's card. We can go back to any part of the tarot where you want. This is, let's say, mundane thing here. There was a race at one point I lived in Whistler for years, and there was this fundraiser, and there was a bunch of guys that would put on high-heeled shoes, and they would do a walking race in high-heeled shoes. It was like, walk a mile in her shoes. It was kind of funny and for fun, and what I'm saying is much more serious than that. But if we can truly see and be, not just see ourselves in another, but be in I have one story that I can share. This was when I came back from India, very open, very vulnerable, very sensitive, and probably shouldn't have been driving, but you have to there. And there is a homeless woman who I knew, known her for years, walking up the highway. And I didn't stop and pick her up because you never quite know how she's going to respond. But I had to pull over because I had this overwhelming sensation that I could be her. I was newly separated or divorced. I was vulnerable, just coming back from India. I was feeling very unsure of myself. And I went to visit a friend, and I tried to explain what I was feeling to somebody else, and them not really being where I was in that moment were all in denial about, oh, you're going to be fine and you will find a new way and da 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 da. That really wasn't my point. It was this powerful level of connection with this other human. So when you have these moments, or when you have cards where you feel like the tree is the human and the human is the tree, and I think this is a real crux of this whole deck, part of that difficult, challenging, that suit of swords, You know, the people are the trees are the people, they reflect each other. The city is the people are the city. We need to understand that you know, this suit that we wear, this costume that we wear, this skin and meat and bones, is really just it's a layer, it's a false layer, and we have the ability to transcend the skin of the trees and to experience oneness. And so as we move our way through the tarot, especially in the 20th and the 21st arcanum, this is where we're touching that place of permeability. There is a tiny moth above the trees in the third card. No, this isn't the second version. I'm just going to read this last paragraph. So where did the serpents come from? Objective reality is merely the dream of a set of systems. In the second version of the world, there is a tiny moth flying above the trees. The end is always there, always giving meaning to existence. Okay. Okay, and then the only other cards we haven't really talked about are these two. And I've sort of talked about Moon and Sun already. And if you've missed the last episode, we talked about the hanged man appearing in the right window of the tower in the Moon card, which is just a brilliant, brilliant connection here. So we have this same sort of energy as most tarot decks. Another thing that is very unique to these cards is that Eden refers to the magician in the Sun card, the magician being fully realized, and that the two bodies we are looking at in the Sun card would be the twin magicians. And if you think of the magician as a one, as your divine potential, your ability to, it's right here, create and grow and know the resources, both three-dimensional and fifth-dimensional, that are available to you. We see the magician come full circle in this card. So in the Temperance card, we see the Fool come full circle, and I know the Fool journeys through the whole, and the Fool really is the magician, and the magician is the Fool in all of this. But this is a card where she focuses on the energy of the magician, and this is the realized magician in full power. And so we can use this solar divinity as solar power to fulfill our dreams, to illuminate our path. And she uses the metaphor, the weather vanes. So the weather vanes that we see in this card come back into the Sun card. And there's something about that feels temporal. Weather vanes turn quickly. They are influenced by the air. It's also very interesting that the magician becomes fully realized in the Sun card. And when I was quite new to reading the tarot, I could never really feel the mercurial influences in the magician. I wanted the magician to be a fire card. It felt like that always to me. And I'm smiling because it's interesting that she brings the magician full circle in a fire element. So that's kind of cool. Yeah. This is a brilliant deck of repeating. I mean, all decks have repeating symbols and sigils and things like that, but this one in particular just weaves these magnificent interconnections of all of these symbols. So something I really, really enjoyed about studying it. The deck in general has a lot of dark and heavy questions. And in the moon card, this is no example. So if you love to wander in the depths, the darkness, the really shady aspects of soul, emotion, dark Scorpio energy, Eden really brings this to light in the moon card and says that this is a place to explore this. She brings forth a conversation about the difference between the High Priestess and the moon. And the High Priestess is sort of the more positive qualities of this exploration of the inner landscape, whereas the moon really goes into the darkness of it all. The World Tree and the Vision Serpent represent the King, created the center axis, which communicates the World Tree and the Vision Serpent represent the King. They create the center axis, which communicates between the spiritual and the earthly worlds or planes. That is interesting, Tamianne. Perhaps the Magician. You know, there's lots of places to read about this, but we can't, the truth is, we can't know ourselves until we separate. So perhaps it's taken the Magician this long to realize that in order to know his full potential, their full potential, separation is required. And yet he's, you know what, those aspects of self are fully integrated and fully embraced. The way that they come together, those two bodies. You know, it's not two little children running along the field. A younger version of the Magician. This is quite a mature depiction of the Magician. He's no longer alone. He's seeing his whole self. It's quite something. Okay, so let's do a reading, okay? Let's do a reading. Okay. I'm going to use my other deck because I've dropped cards on the floor. Sorry, this one doesn't have titles on it. Okay. After 19 weeks wandering through the tarot through the lens of Eden Gallanter, what is the greatest takeaway from this study? And I feel like in that question, there is also the question of what yet needs to be explored. I think both are part of the same question. If there, for those of you that know this deck, and I look forward to the answers below later, If there was a card that was the significator for this deck, what would you say that it is? I'm tempted to say the High Priestess. The way that she is viewed in this deck, drawn in this deck. But I'm interested what you would say. All right, I'm going to cut the cards, and I think I'll lay out a 9 card. That's a 2 of staves, world, 10 of staves. That's the 5 of cups. I believe this is the Princess of Fire. This is Temperance. Ace of staves and 9 of discs. And 4 of cups. Okay. You know, one thing, I mean, this is very mundane, but I love that there's a heart at the center of the reading. So let's look at what's below, what's sort of yet to be revealed. Ace of staves, 9 of pentacles, and that's an interesting juxtaposition of a card of, beginning and a card of near ending. And then I think it's really kind of appropriate that this particular card is here. I have found that the emotional body of this deck is, it's complex. It's very moody. I would not recommend working with this deck if you are deep in depression, or you're working with a friend whose mental health, if you don't know what you're doing, there's a lot of darkness that can potentially arise in this deck. I love that we have the 9 of discs coming to the surface, that it's down below, that it's very close. So these are very medicinal for this particular card, in that the water cards, many of them are very, very challenging. And yet, having the Queen of Staves in this, the Queen of Staves is in the 2 of Staves. So the court cards, the characters in the court cards appear in many of the cards in the tarot. So this is part of this interweaving that is the development of the story and the themes within this deck. With the 2 of staves here, this reading says to me, this deck has the power to open and awaken something in you that could make your path a whole lot clearer. I love that we have her counterpart here. I'm just going to double check that this is indeed the Princess of Staves. I'm pretty sure it is. Just bear with me here. The Princess of Fire. Oh, sorry, I'm in the wrong part of the book. Sadhana, Sadhana. Yeah, it is. It's the Princess of Staves. So the Princess and the Queen of Staves here feeling, there's some heart, there's some energy, it feels very wholesome and very healing, especially sitting next to the Temperance card. So while I was saying this deck skews dark and deep, it also has the power perhaps to heal in a way that other decks don't. Another thing that comes to mind is the idea of dance and movement may really speak to someone who is viewing these cards in understanding that this healing process, the idea of energy and energy in movement, is a very tangible thing. And we can feel these cards by recreating some of these shapes and imagining these shapes. I think we can also pay attention to the flow of energy. And when I look at that 9 of discs that's down below, it's almost as if the princess, I think, in this card, is looking up towards Temperance. There's a real sense of hope. Overhead, we have a card of ending, a card of ending, and then we have the melancholy Prince of Cups in the 5 of Cups. So there's this mirror between the top row and the bottom row where we have, I feel like, 2 powerful cards of transformation supporting a card that is kind of dark and kind of deep, asking us to look at something perhaps we don't want to look at. So if I read that, I would say that don't be afraid of the darkness of this deck, because there are enough empowering cards that will help you to make sense of that. And that makes me feel very positive about continuing to work with this deck. The Ace is knighted to Temperance. That also feels, if the Ace is appearing, the Ace of Staves is appearing from the depths, from the darkness, that it's like healing hands. It's a healing balm. It's a potential, like I said earlier, to really know who we are and maybe what it is, or an aspect of our healing that we haven't faced before. I think this deck is quite confronting and may very well open up something for you that you haven't dared ask the tarot before. So there you have it. Cheimonette Tarot. And I know Amy, I don't know, Georgia Wildflower is her channel name, I think, presently. She put in the comments a couple of times that the pronunciation is Cheimonette. Cheimonette, according to Eden Gallanter. She found that in a blog somewhere. I have not created a schedule yet. It'll be at the same time of day, at least while I'm teaching Tarot Foundations in the morning on Wednesdays. And I'm going to do a public deep dive with the Tildwick Tarot. And the reason that this deep dive is going to be public is because of the limited availability to this deck. And I do have the guidebook from the latest edition, And the cards are the same. There's no difference in the cards, but I will be, this is where I'm going to go next. So I'm not sure if we're going to start next week or not. I haven't really done my preparation for it. So I may very well start in 2 weeks' time. And this will likely carry through to my Marseille year. So the Marseille year will begin in January, and I will carry on with the Tildwick deep dive through the new year because we're very close. There's no way I can get through the Tildwick in 6 weeks or 7 weeks. Okay. Well, thank you. Yes, I will not forget. I have my magnifying glass right here. And I will probably be blowing up and printing the PDF version of it if I can, I think I have it. Okay. Take good care of yourselves, and thank you so much for all your contributions to this, the chats about this deck. Thank you. Namaste.